it's basically printing out the character at index 0. Okay, it's printing H. Just to refresh everybody, so you see the dot notation. You use the dot notation when you're going to call a method on a specific object. In this case, string is basically what our object is or variable is. Okay, so I'm going to call the char at method, and I'm going to pass in an integer because that's what this method accepts as an input, and I'm going to assign the output of that method to a char variable. Okay? And you notice that I gave it a proper naming convention. That's one thing you kind of have to start paying attention to. Whenever you declare variable names, make sure that those variable names kind of make sense to you. All right, any questions on that? All right, we're going to look at another method, ends with, okay? And then we'll go ahead and implement that method. So I'm going to go to the Java doc and look up ends with. Okay. So you can kind of see ends with method takes a string input and returns a Boolean. Okay. So basically I'm defining a string variable called hello world, and I'm calling the method ends with, and I'm passing the keyword world, right? Because it ends with method takes a string data type as input. And then I'm assigning the result to a variable called result, and we'll go ahead and see what the value, what the output is. Okay. So you can see the output hello world string ends with the word, ends with world, it's true. So if I go ahead and change this, let's say world 1, right? You should get false here. Any questions so far on strings? How do you call methods? What is an input to a method, right? The input to the method is called an argument, and what the return from the method is, and how you can assign the return of that method to a variable. Any questions? All right, Neil, this time I'm not going to forget, okay? I'm going to go ahead and paste this in the Slack channel so that it's there for your reference.
Thank you.
And we'll make sure that last week's lecture, we get it out somewhere, okay? All right, any questions on that? Okay, so the next thing we're going to look at is you're going to be looking at the string API, and then you will go through and answer the questions. Basically you'll have to go through the documentation of the string API, and then there are 4 methods that I give you, and I'm asking you a question, which method should I use, okay? So if you don't have the string API in front of you, I would recommend you pull this up. And if you go to the pinned items, right, you will be able to see, if you go to the pinned items, you should see a link to the Java API docs. You can go and click on that and then search for string. The first option should be java.lang.string. Okay, and that's the string class. And if you go down here, these are the methods. These are the methods. And if you can either read the description right here, or you can go for a detailed description, okay? So hopefully everybody has the string API in front of them. If you don't have it, let Richa or me know. All right, so we'll go ahead and start the next quiz. Do we have one more?
Yeah, we are missing one student.
Cool. All right, we're going to go and start the quiz. Good job, guys. So for the two who got this wrong, right? So let's go to the Java docs and let's look at the method called toUpperCase, right? And before I go there, just review the question back, right? So which method takes an input string, right? So that's your first clue, right, as a parameter. So if you look at this method, index of, right, it takes an input string as an input, okay? You take a look at this method. This one also takes an input string, okay? So at this point, right, these are the two valid answers. But then if you go through the question again, it returns the index of the first occurrence of the input, right? So you got to go back to the Java doc and kind of take a look, okay? Straight off, you can rule this out, right? toUpperCase does not return, I mean, it returns a string, but it's not an index or it's not an integer, right? So going back to the Java doc, and you can take a look at the index of method and see what it does, right? You can kind of see that there are a number of index of methods. There is one that takes an int, there's one that takes a string, and if you kind of go and look at the method that takes a string, let's go and look at the Java docs here a little bit. So basically, this one returns the index within the string of the first occurrence of the specified substring. You know? So for example, right? Um, let's go and put a quick example together just so that you guys can see. And we want to see index of, right? So whenever I call a method, I need to call that method on the variable, I use the dot notation and I say index of, and I want to pass a variable in, I want to pass input. Let's say I want to find the index of LO, okay? And assign it to something so I can go ahead and print it out. So basically you can see the index of LO is 3, right? Because this is 0, 1, 2, 3, right? One thing you'll notice that Java is 0-based index, okay? So it always starts with 0 and then it counts. So 0, 1, 2, and the index of LO is 3, okay? The other thing, let's continue to look at the documentation. Just want to skip this part for now, but this statement is important. If no such value exists, right, then -1 is returned, okay? So if you go back and search for a string that is not present in this thing here, let's search for, let's say I want to search for this keyword called COVID in that string that I'm passing, you know. So you kind of see it returns the value of -1. That basically means that COVID is not present in this string, okay? So that's what the documentation says. If no such value exists, then -1 is returned, okay? Any questions before we go to the next question? All right, so for the folks who kind of chose -1, that is the correct answer, right? So basically we are saying, review the documentation for public index of string. That's the method we were just talking about. What value is returned if the input string is not found, right? So if we go ahead and execute this bit of code, like for example, let's say I'm looking for the string called COVID, and this COVID is not present in the hello world string, right? So if you see the return type, return value here, it's -1. Okay? So if the string is not found, the value that is returned is -1. Okay. And if you have any questions, you can go back to the Java docs and you can kind of read the index of method. It says if no such value exists, right, then -1 is returned. Okay. So hopefully that clears it up. So it's not going to be 0, it's going to be -1, and it's also not going to be 1. Okay. Any questions on the string methods as is? The one thing you'll notice, it's very hard to go ahead and by heart all these methods. Okay, it's close to impossible. So whenever you see a need, right, what you will do is you'll come to the Java doc, you look up a method, and maybe you can write a quick hello world app to see how that method works. That's the best way to figure out what's going on with the method. Okay. Even when you do your FTC course, right? FTC, when you do the FTC program, they will also give you a Java doc for, hey, what is a motor, right? They'll give you a Java doc for the different sensors, right? So you'll kind of look up what methods can you use on a motor, what methods can you use on sensors and things like that. All right, any questions there? If there are no questions on that, so we're going to go and talk about conditional statements. All right, a conditional basically if is a good example for a conditional statement. So basically you want to check, if something is true, okay, then do something, right? In this case, I'm basically saying, hey, if A is less than B, go ahead and print out something saying that A is less than B, okay? So that's a simple conditional. If you kind of notice that, there's a brace here, there's a brace here, there's a curly brace here, and in between the braces, right, you need to use something that returns true or false, okay? So in this case, we're declaring two variables, one integer, A 10 and B 20. And then we're checking if A is less than B. Go ahead and print out this, A is less than B. And if A is greater than B, go ahead and print out A is greater than B. Any questions on that? So let's go and run them. So the output is basically A is less than B because 10 is less than 20. All right. I'm actually in the wrong file. Let me just go back. Sorry. Any question on conditionals? All right. So in this case, we applied conditionals to integers, right? Let's see if I can apply conditionals to strings, So if I wanted to check if both these strings are the same, you would do something like this. If then, oops. So print something like that. So if A equal to, notice it's not a single equal to, it's equal to equal to. If you use a single equal to like here, it's an assignment operator. But if you use a double equal to, it's more of a Boolean kind of, it kind of, it's a logical operator, So it returns, this thing basically returns true or false, okay? So here we are checking that if the first string is equal to second string, and basically if hello world is equal to hello world, right? Then the output is first and second strings are equal. Right, so the output is basically first and second strings are equal. have another example here. In this case, basically you see the third string is hello world, right? And the fourth string is also hello world, but then I went and used lowercase instead of uppercase, right? So if that's the case, right? Uh, are these strings equal or not, right? They're not equal, at least in Java, because Java is case sensitive. They're not equal, right? So if you basically go ahead and see if, so if both are equal, I'm going to print this, right? And let's see if the values get printed, right? Right. And you can see in the output, this is not getting printed, right? Because this evaluates to false. And if it evaluates to false, it just doesn't go within the if block, okay? Um, but if I say if it's not equal, right? Because both these strings are not equal because this is case sensitive. And then I go ahead and run this now. Then you can see it prints that out. The third and fourth strings are not equal. Any questions so far? So basically conditionals, just to summarize, right? If the conditional executes, then it goes and executes whatever is within that if statement. If not, it doesn't execute it. Okay. One more step on the conditionals, just going to the next level, right? If else, so basically that means that if something is true, right? If something is true, then execute else. So if else, it's just one additional statement. So basically saying if something is true, execute this, else execute that. Okay. So that's an if else statement. Okay. So you notice the keyword else here. And just as an example, let's take time, right? If it's 20, that basically if it's 8 o'clock, right? Uh, sorry, let's say the current time is 20 or 8 o'clock. And if the time is less than 6 o'clock, right, or 18, just say good day, otherwise say good evening, okay? So we are using the if conditional and then the else. So if I go and execute this, because we are giving the current time as 8 o'clock or 20, right? So it's saying good evening. And if I go ahead and change it to, let's say 10, I go and execute that, it should print good morning, right? Good day. So, all right, any questions on the conditionals?
Ram, should we cover the part where we use dot equals for string comparison?
I think we'll maybe give that as an exercise, Richa, okay? Maybe after this, I'll give that as an exercise, Richa, okay? Or we can cover this after, as soon as we are done with this example here. All right, we're going to do another conditional example. This is going to be a little bit more complex than the ones that we did earlier. Um, so basically, in this case, right, I've defined a string here. Okay, it's called Lincoln's address, and basically I've got whatever his Gettysburg address was. Okay, and I want to know if Lincoln used the keyword Washington in his address or not. Okay, and as you have seen, the index of method in the string right, returns the index of the word if it's there. Otherwise, it returns -1. Okay. So I'm going to use the index of method to see if the keyword Washington is there in Lincoln's address or not. Okay. So if I have to do that, right? So basically you can say if, then I'm going to call the string and say, okay, index of the word that I'm searching for is Washington. If it's there, right, it returns me in the index of the value. So basically there are two options, right? I could either say, I could say, hey, if the value is greater than 0, right, that basically means that the word Washington is there and it returns me some index of, right? Then I can print out,
If Washington was the first word, then wouldn't it like be 0?
yes, that is true. Who was that?
Gracie.
Yep. So I think Gracie, you would basically say great, something like that. Okay, you're absolutely correct. So let's go ahead and execute that. I am a little surprised. That is returning true. Let's go ahead and just see what the value of this is, right? I thought it was not
Now,
there.
if
Yep.
else print is same,
Was that Richa? Sorry.
else you may want to print not, right?
Oh yeah, that's true. Sorry. Uh, if it's there, else it's not present. Yep, that's right. Yeah, that is correct, right? And just so that everybody's following, right? Let's go and see what the index of is, right? So on the string, you're going to call the index of method, and let's see. So you can see that it prints -1, right? That basically means that thing is not found, right? So -1 is not greater than or equal to 0, right? So that's why it's going to the else block, right? So let's look up a string that is present in this address, right? So let's say, like Gracie said, let's go ahead and use Foursquare, right? Fourscore, let's say, and see what the output is, right? So you can see Fourscore is present, right? So if I didn't include the equal to here, you can see, right? It's present. It's saying it's not present. Good job, Gracie. All right, any questions on that? All right, I have a exercise coming up, so it's going to be a little difficult, but let's see if we can get through this. Quickly, I wanted to cover what Richa was asking, showing you how to use the dot equals method. So instead of basically using the equal to, there's another method called dot equals, And it is a method on the string object itself, So another way to do this would be if first string dot equals, let's say, and I can pass it another string here, or I can just say equals to second string. It's been a while I've not used this equals to. Let's see if it works. Yeah. All right, so that's another way to see if they are equal. There's an equals to method on the string object. And if you use Eclipse, right, it kind of, when you hover over that, it kind of gives you a description of, a brief description of the method. And for now, don't worry about the input it's saying it's an object, right? We have not touched base on classes yet, but that's a topic for next week or the week following that, okay? Any questions on this? So far? All right. So the next, it's an exercise for you guys, okay? Let me paste this in Slack so this is available for you guys. For reference. Take that out. All right. Let's see how far we can get here, okay? We are close to 18 minutes left, but I want you all to go ahead and write a program, okay? What do you have to do? Going back here, and I'm going to go through the description. So I want you to write a program to find out if Lincoln mentioned the word liberty within the first 150 characters, okay? So basically what I wanted to do in this case, right? I wanted to go to the Java doc and see which method you will use if you want to find out if the word liberty was used within the first 150 characters, okay? And a clue is basically, it's going to be index of, it's just the conditional, what conditional you use, okay? And I want you to print out, use the if statement and an else statement. Uh, a clue is you'll be using the index of method. And the question is, what are you going to use, here, right? What is your conditional going to be and what is your value going to be, okay? So go ahead and give it a try.
Did
Any
you
questions?
post the speech on Slack?
Yes, I will. And I'm going to post the question too, for what I want you guys to do. while everybody is going to try that out, Richa and I can answer any questions you guys have, or if you need any help with this, right? Go ahead and ask us. Any questions on what we covered so far?
What?
Or was there a question there? Is everybody following, or do you have any questions on the topics we covered so far? Also, if anybody's having issues compiling the code, let Richa or me know. If anybody's having issues creating a new class, this is a good time to ask us a question, so we can help you with any compilation issues, execution issues, or anything like that. And also while you're there, see if you can use the editor, right? It prompts you to see what methods are there. It kind of helps you autocomplete. In Mac, the shortcut is a control and space bar. Since you all have Windows, if anybody knows the shortcut for autocomplete in Windows Eclipse, let us know. And basically what I mean is if I go ahead and type, in this case, if I go ahead and type LIN, right? And I do a control and space bar, it prompts me what my options are, okay? In Windows, I'm not sure what the shortcut is. If anybody knows the shortcuts, let us know. And once you're done, you can let me know.
One.
Good job, Gracie. So have you done Java before, Gracie?
A little, yeah.
Okay, cool. So have you worked on classes, exceptions, and things like that?
I don't think so.
Okay, cool.
Looks like Neil is also done with the exercise.
Good job, Neil. If anybody has issues compiling their code or anything, let us know. Reach out, I will help you out. Or creating a new class, this is a good time.
All right, so the last person who is going to say that they're done, they will be the one who will share the screen with us. Okay?
So Neil and Gracie, I have a question for you guys. What's the shortcut in, I think both of y'all have Windows, right? So what is the shortcut to autocomplete in Windows. If you're in, like, for example, when I type, in this case, if I'm going to type in LIN, right? And I do control and spacebar in Mac, it gives me the prompt so that I don't have to type everything, right? I do and then I can just select that, right? So what's the shortcut, in Windows? Or does control and spacebar work in Windows?
It works.
Okay, cool. And also, does the dot operator work, and do you get the IntelliSense?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Good job, Jack, Isabella, Alia, Michael, Mira.
So 8 students are done, right? Waiting for 2 more. Maybe one person dropped off. I don't know. Now we are only 12 participants. Only 10 students are there.
Okay.
So I think Anya, okay, Mara is done. Anya, are you close to getting done? Oh, okay. Anya is done too. Cool. So I since Anya,
Okay, so what?
okay, Anya replied the last. Anya, do you want to share your screen with us and walk us through the solution?
That's okay, Richa.
Okay.
So anybody wants to volunteer? Did Lincoln mention the word liberty within the first 150 characters based on your implementation, right? Anybody wants to? Yes, good job, Neil. Yeah, yeah. All right, that's the correct answer, just to kind of see what index of liberty is, right? Let's go and execute this. Dot out, dot. Uh, so at 103, right? That's the index of when he mentioned the keyword liberty, so it's definitely less than 150. Okay, so let's hop on to the next advanced conditionals here. And we're getting close to time. So I will cover two more things maybe, and then we will stop there, okay? So far you saw how to use if and else, okay? So instead of basically putting that long if else, there is a shortcut. It's called a ternary operator, okay? So it looks something like this, Your conditional, yeah. And most probably you'll put that conditional within brackets, and then you'll say, if that's true, else, something like that, so we'll go and give that a try. Okay, here's an example. In this case, we are seeing I'm declaring a variable called temp. It's an int, and then the value current temperature is 80 degrees. Okay, I'm saying if temperature is greater than 70, then print out then return warm, otherwise return cold. Okay, and I'm assigning the value to a variable called weather conditions. And then I'm going to go ahead and print that out. We're saying weather conditions outside are, and whatever value gets set over there. Okay? So this is called a ternary operator. It kind of behaves like an if and else, So this part gets executed if at all the conditional is true, else this part gets executed. Any questions on a ternary operator? So as you go through the FTC course, you will most probably, instead of seeing if else, right, you'll most probably see ternary operators. Okay, so it's the short form for if else. So I'm going to go ahead and execute this. You can see the temperature is 80, which is greater than 70. So it's going to return the word warm and store it in weather conditions. And that's what we're printing out. All right. I'll cover one more thing, and then we'll leave time for questions here. Um, so last time we saw logical operations, right? We saw ampersand, one logical operations, and then we saw so this is called AND, right? And the other logical operation we saw is OR, okay? Or this is OR and that's AND, So AND returns true if at all both the values are true. And OR returns true if any one of the values is true, okay? So for example, let's say I have a integer C 60, and I want to check if C is greater than 50 and less than 70, okay? Then I want to print the string, C is between 50 and 70, okay? So for that, we can use the AND operator and check the conditional and print the values. So here's a good example for AND, right? So let's go, so if C, which is 60 is greater than 50, that's true. And 60 is less than 70, that also is true. So both the conditionals, right? This one executes to true, and this also executes to true. Hence, both the result itself executes to true, and that's when it executes the statement, okay? So you can see C is between 50 and 70. Pretty similar. The OR operator. So if one of those executes to true, then it returns true, okay? So let's go and execute this one here. In this case, I'm declaring D as 60, and I'm checking if D is greater than 50. So 60 is greater than 50, definitely true here. But 60 is not greater than 70, right? So this executes to false, but true or false. So if any one of them is true, the result will always be true because you're using an OR operator. And that's why, this statement will get executed, okay? So in this case, we're saying D is greater than 50 or 70. All right. Any questions on that? All right. I think we're at time. So quickly, does any one of y'all have any questions for today's contents?
We are planning to, yes, I am recording today's session. So we will post it on the Java channel. So there was a question from Neil. Will you post recordings of classes after each class?
Yep. And Neil, feel free to, if you have follow-ups, right, always use the channel, right? So it's going to be helpful for others too when you ask questions. So always go ahead and use the channel, okay?
Any other questions? What we covered today, what we covered in the last class, if you have any questions.
Yeah, and if anything that we covered today, you're struggling to get, feel free to ping Richa or me. You can send a direct message to one of us. We'll be more than happy, to either answer your questions on Slack, or if we need to do a quick call to basically clarify any of the things, we are open to that, so.
All right, if we don't have any more questions, you all have a good evening.
All right.
See you next Tuesday. Bye.
Thank you.
See you.
Yeah.